So he walks in, and there's a bunch of construction workers, because it's still early in the morning, and they're all sitting around. And he sees this one with an eye patch. And he goes up to him, and being Jesus, he's concerned. What happened? He says, well, we were driving some nails, one hit me in the eye, and now I can't see. And Jesus reaches over and heals him, and takes off the eye patch, and he can see. He says, wow, that's amazing. He looks over at this other guy, and he's on crutches. And Jesus says, well, what happened? He said, well, I'm a brick mason, and I was on the scaffolding, and I fell off, and, I hurt my hip and my back and my knee, and I can't hardly walk. And Jesus heals him, and, oh my gosh, this is great. He looks over, he sees this concrete worker, right? He says, well, what's wrong with you? And he says, hey, my back is sore, but don't touch me. I'm drawing disability, okay? How long does it take in life after a setback, after a crisis, to kill our optimism? Once we hit that setback, how long before despair sets in and the feelings of hopelessness that follow, how long does it take until that problem becomes the new normal and we just decide this is life now? I'm going to live in the pain, I'm going to live in the problem, and this is it. This is as good as it's going to get. In the days of Jesus, there was a pool not too far from the temple in Jerusalem, and the sacrificial sheep that would come in to be sacrificed had to be washed first. So they're unclean. Ceremonially, they're unclean because they just came out of the field. And so they had this place called the sheep's pool. And so people would, bring their sheep in to sell so that they could, be taken care of. And they would wash them in there. But there was also this, folklorish, mythical legend to this sheep's pool that an angel from heaven would come. And this angel would stir up the waters in this pool. And if you were the first person to get in the waters while they were turbulent and stirred up, you would be healed of whatever ailment you had. You could be blind, you could be crippled, whatever it was. If you went in those waters, you would be healed. And so for a long time we didn't know if this was real or not, but archaeologists have actually uncovered the site. They've verified it. It's a real place, and we read about it in John chapter 5, and that's where I'm going to be looking at this morning. Bethesda. That in Hebrew and Aramaic it means house of mercy. Right? So here are people, they're going to go there and they're going to receive a healing mercy. So John's Gospel, beginning in chapter 5, verse 1, John records, after this there was a feast of the Jews, and Jesus went up to Jerusalem. And if you like John's Gospel, you're going to notice that this is the only unnamed festival or feast in John's Gospel. He doesn't say which one it is. He just says there was a feast of the Jews. And Jesus goes up to Jerusalem. Now, in Jerusalem, by the sheep gate, a pool in Aramaic called Bethesda, which has 5 roofed colonnades. So it's a pretty big deal. It's ornate. It's well taken care of. And verse 3 says, in the colonnades, lay a multitude of invalids, blind, lame, and paralyzed. One man who was there had been an invalid for 38 years. When Jesus saw him lying there and knew he had already been there a long time, he said to him, "You want to be healed?" The sick man answered, "Sir, I have no one to put me into the pool when the water is stirred up, and while I am going, another steps down before me." Jesus said to him, "Take up your bed and walk." So with just a word, Jesus heals him, right? And at once the man is healed. He took up his bed and he walked. Now, that day was a Sabbath, John includes. Verse 10, so the Jews said to the man who had been healed, "It's the Sabbath. It's not lawful for you to take up your bed." But he answered them, "The man who healed me, that man said to me, 'Take up your bed and walk.'" And they asked him, "Well, who is this man that said to you, take up your bed and walk. Now, the man who had been healed did not know who it was, for Jesus had withdrawn, as there was a crowd in the place. Afterward, Jesus found him in the temple and said to him, Ah, see, you're well. Sin no more, that nothing worse may happen to you. The man went away and told the Jews that it was Jesus who had healed him. And this is why the Jews were persecuting Jesus, because he was doing these things on the Sabbath. Verse 17, but Jesus answered them, My Father is working until now, and I am working until now. I want you to think about the power of habits and how long it takes to start a habit and how they affect us forever. The literature out there, the books in the self-help section, you Google it on Google. It's kind of redundant. And we learned that a habit takes how many days to form? It's the magic number.
21.
21, right. There's a movie out there, right? 21, about going to a rehab, right? That's how long we put people in rehab. That's how long professionals say to make something part of your daily life is to make it habitual, it's 21 days. Think about a guy who has been an invalid for 38 years. Now, in the days of Jesus, the average lifespan for a man was 40 years. 40 is way in my rearview mirror. Think of the habits. Think of the patterns. Think of the attitude. Think of the behavior. Think of this man's life. He's an invalid. Scholars say he's probably paralyzed. Can't walk. Someone's got to pick him up periodically, perhaps so he can use a restroom. Someone's got to pick him up periodically to drop him off at the pool. Someone maybe even takes him home. Every pattern in his life is somebody doing something for him. He probably begs, right? He's not out there working construction. He's not out there fishing. Place to place, movement to movement. Think of the 38 years that have accumulated and the feelings of inadequacy, incompetence, feeling like he's a burden, feeling like he has no place in society, feeling like he's useless. And interestingly enough, he's waiting at the edge of the pool for some angel to stir up the water. Now, Jesus doesn't criticize their superstition here. He seems to accommodate their folklore, doesn't criticize it, doesn't judge it, doesn't challenge it, but offers something different. Here's this guy laying there. Jesus knows, according to the text, he's been there a long time, knows that he is sick, knows that there is a problem. And you think about it, the longer in this life that we're stuck in a rut, the harder it is to get out. We kind of become comfortable with it. You adjust to the pain. You adjust to the problem. You adjust to the crisis. You adjust to the dysfunction. It becomes the new normal. You get comfortable with being uncomfortable. You tolerate the pain. How many times have you put off going to the dentist? Right? Who wants to, sorry Nancy, right? Who wants to sit down in the chair and have that drill, right? I hate that noise. Right? I hate the idea of someone with their hand in my mouth. You know, it's like, I'm going to put that off until whenever, right? So why does Jesus ask the man if he wants to be healed? Isn't that a no-brainer, Lincoln? Wouldn't you? I mean, if you knew someone was sick, would you ask them, do you want to feel better? Yeah. How old are you going to be tomorrow? 3. I love it. Isn't that kind of a no-brainer, though? Jesus asked the man, he goes, why do you want to be healed? The truth is, not everybody out there wants to get out of their rut. Not everybody wants to get better. Not everybody's worried about it. And Jesus apparently respects that. Jesus doesn't force it on him. That's what changes these things up here, buddy. That's called a clicker. Jesus apparently respects that. He doesn't force himself. He doesn't force his idea. He doesn't force his will on the invalid. And maybe we could learn a lesson from Jesus. Maybe we could learn to ask more questions instead of just assuming that we have the right answer for everybody in their circumstance. It's kind of easy to be an expert. Like, I can remember, Tammy and I were very young when we started having kids, and so we had kids before our siblings and other people. And everyone else who didn't have kids yet, guess what? They were an expert on parenting. They could tell you what you were doing wrong. They could tell you how to do it right. Well, Jesus comes to the invalid. He says, do you want to be healed? He doesn't assume that the guy wants to. Doesn't assume, I know what's best for you. Even though Jesus does know what's best for him, he asks instead of tells. And I love that. A bigger question for me in this text, I don't know about you, why doesn't Jesus heal everyone? As I was reading, maybe you noticed in verse 3, in these lay a multitude of invalids. That's more than a handful. That's more than a couple dozen. I'm assuming hundreds of people, right? In these lay a multitude of invalids, blind, lame, and paralyzed. So a bunch of people with a bunch of problems. Why doesn't he heal them all? I mean, he comes to this guy, asks him if he wants to be healed, heals him with a word. I mean, here's a bunch of people. They're not living. They're just existing. They're hanging out there. They're at the mercy of other people. They're hurting. They're wounded. They're lame. I mean, it's bleak. It's hopeless. It's bad. Why not heal them all? Maybe that's not Jesus' main mission when he comes to the earth. Maybe he heals some people because they're ready for it. Maybe that's what's best for them. Maybe he's healing them to prove who he is. I don't know why he didn't heal them all, but it's an interesting part of the passage. So Jesus says, do you want to be healed? What is Jesus asking this man? What is it that he is saying? Do you want to give this up? What is it the guy has to give up? You want to be healed. 38 years of dependence. A lifestyle of sickness. The man's whole identity is wrapped up in what? Oh, there's little Jimmy, the invalid. Right? At all the family reunions, come on and get in the picture. Well, we got to wait for little Jimmy. That's his whole life, right? Listen, there's something that I thought about this passage over and over, and there's something that pops out here. And I think Jesus is surfacing it. There is a major difference between having a burden and being a burden. I hadn't thought about it until I was working on this sermon. There's a big difference between having a burden. The guy has a burden. He's paralyzed. There's a difference between having a burden and being a burden. But this obviously has become who this guy sees himself as. This is his life. Jesus says, do you want to be healed? Not everyone wants to be healed. Not everyone wants to get out of it. Change is hard. Change can be scary. Change can be intimidating. Most churches, many people, institutions, they're intimidated. They don't want to make the effort. The intimidation factor outweighs the fact that even the change is going to be good. It's going to be good for you, but yet we still hold back. I used to have a coworker, Tony. You've heard me talk about Tony before. Yeah, Tony. And Tony was a heavy smoker, probably still is. I haven't seen him in a long time. And I can remember being concerned for his health. I'd say, Tony, man, you should really quit smoking. And he says, are you kidding me? All these years of smoking, do you know what I have invested in all this? I'm not just going to quit now, right? It's hard. Habits, lifestyle, patterns. It's hard to quit even though it's better for us. And then we just rationalize our problems anyway. We just say, oh my gosh, right? I deserve this. I mean, didn't I bring this on myself? Maybe Jimmy jumped in a pool that didn't have any water in it, and that's how he was paralyzed. I don't know about the guy in the story, right? But we rationalize the problem, and pretty soon we say, well, no one cares, so why should I care? And this is just who I am. It's just not going to get any better, and on and on. What's interesting about the invalid here is he's got some obstacles. The first and foremost, a simple one, is he is an invalid. He can't get to the water. His other obstacle that he raises to Jesus is, I can't get to the water. I've got no one to take me to the water when it's stirred up. Right? I cannot get into the water in time. And all of this lack of help, lack of ability, leaves him short-sighted. He cannot see any further. He sees his only option is this superstitious pool of water, and he's short-sighted, and he begins to fall into that cycle of feeling, I'll never have a chance at being healed. I've staked it all, and I can't see any further. How often do we experience tunnel vision in our lives? Right? We get to the point where this is the only option we can see, and it's not going to work, but that's still what we're focusing on. I'm still waiting for this. If only that would happen, then I would be happy, and then things could take place. There's a lot of literature out there that says when you're under stress, your body releases a lot of cortisol, and when you're under stress, your creative thinking, your ability to think through problems is diminished. You ever have your thinking get foggy? You get, just all the anxiety or the frustration, and you just can't think. That's this man right here. 38 years of buildup. I cannot get to the water. I'm overwhelmed. Change is overwhelming. Do you want to be healed? Or do you just want to tolerate that life? Well, that existence. Do you want to stay stuck in your rut, or do you want something better? The punchline of the story for John's audience back in that day, the punchline is Jesus violates their understanding of the Sabbath. There's not a whole lot of doubt the guy was healed. They're not upset. The Jewish leaders aren't upset, oh, this man is healed. They're upset that it's on the Sabbath day. Verse 16, the Jews are persecuting Jesus because he's doing these things on the Sabbath. Jesus answered, my Father's working until now. I'm working until now. They're infuriated that he works on the Sabbath day. So let me wrap up with this. What's more offensive to you? Jesus doing something, right, on the Sabbath day, doing something when people thought he shouldn't do it. In other words, they don't have the problem with him healing, but it's the day of the week that he chooses. Which is more offensive, that or the fact that sometimes we don't act when we should? We stay stuck in the rut. So remember, major difference between having a burden and feeling like a burden. And according to Jesus, the choice is up to you.